Hello and welcome to day 2 of 2022 Springboard SummerComes live from New York. We are here with Fabio from Adverity. Fabio, welcome.
Thank you very much, Zoe.
Could you tell our viewers a little bit about your company, Adverity, and what your role is?
Yes, absolutely. So, my name is Fabio. I'm based in London, although originally I'm Italian, and I work for an Austrian company. Sounds like the beginning of a joke almost. And at Adverity, I'm responsible for business development, which is not quite sales, it's more like building relationships with partners to basically enhance the value of the company. So it's all a role about partnerships. And at Adverity, we have a data integration and data analytics platform primarily used by marketing teams, sales teams, and e-commerce teams. So this is the majority of the work we do, and the majority of our clients are business to consumer. So that's why I'm here.
And how do you think, in general, the role of marketers and marketing as a whole is changing across the retail and manufacturing industries?
Yeah, it's, if you think of, there are some technical things that are changing that people may be aware of, the deprecation of cookies. It's kind of boring stuff, so let's not talk about it now. But I think what has really changed for B2C in particular is the fact that consumers they have an expectation to talk to brands pretty much anywhere at any moment of time. They have very high expectations, and marketers need to make sure that they are in conversation with their potential customers or existing customers 24/7 on TikTok, on Facebook, on everywhere. So there has been a proliferation of platforms and data points where customers, potential or actual customers, and brands are talking to each other. So this is definitely one big change from a few years ago. And I guess from a more conceptual thing, and this is true for every marketer really, there has been historically, marketers have been spending money and almost not having to justify that money with results. So marketing has been not very measurable for a long time. With the advent of digital marketing, everything got a lot more measurable. And now there is an expectation from CMOs and marketers in general that they generate revenues. Like they are not a cost center for a company, but they're a revenue center. So there is increased pressure on performance. And of course, the recent pandemic made that even more front of mind. So a lot of marketers have had their budgets reduced, but the expectations were that the results would stay the same. So there was a lot of pressure, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, in terms of performance. But now marketers have a way to really track the performance of their activities, and this is very, very important in, again, consumer goods. And of course, if we talk about retailers and suppliers, the conversation could get a bit difficult, because if you don't sell directly online yourself as a manufacturer, then you are intermediated by retailers, and the ability to track all your data sort of from I produce this and I spent X in marketing, what's my return on investment on my marketing campaigns is very difficult, because again you need to rely on many partners to provide data to you. But data is out there, and I think today and yesterday a lot of conversations were about data, which seems to be a very common interest in the business.
So from what I gather, it's all about streamlining data due to this large digitalization boom that has happened in the marketing industry. The idea is really to streamline the data.
Streamlining, yes, I would say even normalizing or standardizing data. So I have many conversations around concepts like a single source of truth, making sure there's a company, and beyond marketing, but like everyone in a company can have this single source of truth, or master data management solution where the data is available for the business to then realize, or to then analyze and understand how the business is doing. Different data sets tend to be quite different and not easily comparable. So a typical analogy is the one of comparing apples with apples. So we see one of the big challenges in B2C, but in general, is to create, again, these data sets that are comparable among each other. So then companies can do very smart analysis, and not just analysis, it's also about collaboration with partners and, again, suppliers and retailers. So the streamlining, standardization of data is actually very, very important and a big challenge as well.
Yeah, I can imagine it's a huge challenge. And what, according to you, right now, globally, are the key trends in the consumer goods industry?
Yeah, so again, if we keep this sort of the marketing lens on for a moment, I think one of the things I noticed, and I've been in my role for almost 6 years now, so the conversations I had 6 years ago with potential customers and the ones I'm having today, they're very different, in the sense that 6 years ago and 3 years ago even, a lot of consumer goods companies were working with marketing agencies to do a lot of their data analysis when it comes especially to marketing and e-commerce. But there has been this trend, kind of like started almost by Procter & Gamble actually a few years ago, but that's probably for another episode, where brands are taking a lot more ownership of their data. So in general, I see this trend, and I've been seeing this trend for a while now, where companies want to own the data instead of delegating third parties, be it a consultant or an agency, to do the analysis on the data themselves. They want to generate the insights and the knowledge internally, which goes sort of hand in hand with what I would say is the second trend, which is one about creating a data culture within the organization. And it's interesting because a lot of people have been talking about how difficult it is to hire data scientists, again, to do marketing related work or whatever, supply chain, it doesn't really matter. And it's true, these profiles tend to be in short supply, and what I've seen is that oftentimes these sort of expensive roles then join a company and they're not put in a position to do their job as sort of data scientists, because oftentimes, we go back to the point we discussed earlier, there isn't a single source of truth or like a reliable set of data sets that these people can work with. So changing the culture in a company and making sure that everyone from the CEO down to any other role has more data-driven mentality and take data as a very fundamental part of the overall value of the company is definitely a trend we see. And again, if I go back to the analogy of or the data ownership part we said earlier, a lot of companies are bringing this talent in-house, and then they need to retain this talent. So culture and talent retention, very, very important. And I guess although this might be then a little bit too technical, we might be going down a slight rabbit hole, but
no worries. Yes.
As mentioned earlier, there is this, again, in the basic fundamentals of marketing and how marketing is measured, a lot of it is based on cookies on your computer, so that you can basically track what users are doing and retarget them with advertising. And a lot of this is changing. It's a bit unsure exactly when, but a lot of rules are changing. And marketers are faced with the challenge of trying to understand, okay, how do we not necessarily track, I don't like the word track, but how do we make sure that we can understand the return on investment on our campaigns? And what I see here is two things. One is a great focus on developing so-called first-party data. So you as a manufacturer or consumer good companies will be spending a lot more time in building relationship with their customers and collecting their email addresses and potentially their Twitter handle or whatever, because they're trying to create more and more information, a more rounded profile of their users and their customers, so they can target them with better promotions, better like upsells or cross-sales opportunities. So gathering this first-party data is absolutely fundamental now. The second aspect is, this is nothing new in marketing, but marketing mix modeling is a type of analysis of the results and the effectiveness of marketing campaigns that have been in vogue for many years, and now it's sort of coming back to the forefront because it's not relying on these third-party cookies. So what I'm seeing now is methodologies that have been always part of the weapons of a marketer coming back into fashion because, again, this cookie deprecation is it.
So what I'm really understanding that it's all about ownership of data by brands. And from what I'm getting is it's very much a culture change that needs to happen within organizations to kind of understand the data, having a culture of data within organizations, and then retaining the talent that extracts and analyzes this kind of data. Do you have any ideas on how retail and manufacturing companies can attract and retain this kind of talent?
That's actually an excellent question, and I would say somebody not too long ago told me that a culture change, especially when it's like creating a data culture, can only succeed if it starts from the very top. And I agree. I've actually been in situations where like CEOs of companies or people in very senior roles almost made it like a badge of honor to not even writing their own emails, and like they came across as men, and well, unfortunately for them, in most cases they were men from a different era, like almost saying, "Oh yeah, technology is here, but I don't care." And with that kind of leadership, you probably will not be able to instill like the kind of more data-driven culture that is needed. So I would say it starts at the top. So CEOs in particular that will be embracing this idea of working with data will then be able to transmit it down to the rest of the company, and yeah.
Okay, so that's good to hear. So there really has to be a top-down approach to having a culture change within an organization.
I think so.
That's one of the key trends.
I think so, yeah. And maybe what I've seen, again, this is slightly anecdotal, but I've seen over the last few years some people, again, with the marketing lens, moving from agencies and going sort of brand side, and in this process of like in-housing certain types of skill sets and talents, and then going back to an agency world. I think in general there is a lot of brands still need to understand, especially when it comes to marketing, how to work, how to keep people excited and motivated and staying longer. I think marketing is a bit of an odd data set, because a lot of the things I said about data maturity and using data, if you work in a finance team or probably in supply chain, you would probably look at this video and feel like, what is Fabio talking about? We've been data-driven and making data-driven decisions for a long time, and it's true, but marketing has always been a bit more esoteric, and a lot of people didn't necessarily want to be held accountable for what they were doing. So this idea of I've got a budget, I spend it, and then we don't ask too many questions about it has been very convenient for many people over time. But now the culture is changing. People want to be measured because they can show to their peers or to the board of the company how good is the work they're producing. That work creates revenues and positive impact for the company.
So this is your first time at the end-to-end SummerComes Springboard. So we've had around 2 days of very lively discussions, very much touching upon the key trends, especially what you talked about changing a culture of data within organizations. What did you feel about the discussions over the past 2 days? And do you think that there was any topic that was not touched upon?
Well, that's an excellent question. I must say that in many occasions I felt a bit like an outsider, because some conversations went very sort of deep, and I thought like, it's all very interesting, but not necessarily my daily conversations. No, but one thing that again many times has been repeated is the importance of data, whether it's marketing data or any other data set, and everyone is so focus on data to the point that there are different initiatives and pillars all about data. So this has been definitely the common theme that I noticed. And also one thing, again, data is a very broad term, right? So I'm always very conscious when I talk about data to make sure that people I'm talking about understand what kind of data I'm talking about. Otherwise, you just you believe you've created a sense of common understanding, but maybe you haven't. But that was very good. And what I also really liked, because it's a personal interest of mine, was all the conversations around sustainability and supply chain. I find it extremely fascinating, and then here again hearing what SAP is doing in that space, and and maybe I should have not mentioned the brand, so maybe we'll cut that later. So let's do it again. In the space of sustainability and supply chain, I've seen many interesting things, and also the fact that equality is brought into the picture of what companies are trying to achieve, and not just saving on CO2 emissions, etc. Thinking about what is there any topic that was missing? I don't know. I cannot think of anyone particularly, because I felt like so many things were touched upon, and no, I wouldn't say anything stands out as missing from the conversation.
That's very good to hear, Fabio. And if our viewers would like to get in touch with you, how can they?
Yeah, well, you can, our website is adverity.com. Now, Adverity is not always the easiest spelling, but I'm sure you'll be able to spell that. And personally, if you want to get in touch with myself, the easiest way is my email is my first name, Fabio, @adverity.com. And would love to have a conversation with anyone who found this interesting.
Thank you so much, Fabio. And thank you very much for joining us at the 2022 Springboard SummerComes live from New York. Thank you for listening and watching.